This is the Aquador 400 HT, and it's the biggest boat that Aquador has ever built. Now, the smaller boats in this range are brilliantly packaged and bristling with clever ideas, so I have high hopes for this, given the designers have more space to play with. It's pretty good value as well, 560,000 euros ex-VAT to show spec with a pair of diesel engines. So, should we see if it's any good? I'm Jack Haynes, welcome to YachtBuyer. Let's start back here, shall we? Because you can't help but notice this enormous platform. They've taken the seating area they had on the 300 HT and they've run with it in a big way. But we'll get onto that in a moment. Let's look at some of the other features back here. Namely, down here on the port side, the stern anchor. Such as the way in the Nordics, there is the option to have a bow anchor if you prefer, but that's where it comes as standard. And it is a very practical boat from the off. Things like getting to storage is really easy. You just lift up this hatch, the cushion is attached to the top, there's a ram down there, and you can with one hand put fenders in, take fenders out, put covers in. They make it all very easy indeed. This is a very wide open expanse, plenty of space to move around, and you've got these sockets in the deck as well, so you can erect a canopy up here if you want some shade over this area. Now, as standard, this seating area is obviously a key feature, a very nice place to sit, looking out of the boat, over the water. Imagine you're an anchor in a fjord, in a nice secluded bay. This is where you're going to want to sit and you can observe what's going on in the water. This also drops down to become a sunpad. So you have electric control of the table here. That will drop right down to flush with the cushions, and then you can slide this out and create a sunpad. And underneath that is where you find engine room access. So that section is automatic, obviously, and then you have a manual hatch there, so you can pull that up and have really good clear access to the engines themselves, which we're going to look at the end of the tour. So let's drop this back down. Now, I should mention the alternative option here, which is to have a fixed sunpad. So then you get a nice amount of sunbathing space back here and space for an inflatable underneath. You know, it's not going to be a very big tender, but you can, with the outboard off, get it stowed away. So if you want a bit more sunbathing space and somewhere to stow a tender, that is potentially a good option. Moving to the cockpit, what you have with this setup is a huge amount of seating. You can sleep 6 people downstairs, and there is plenty of room in here for them to all get comfortable around this table. I'd argue that you've got a bit too much seating really between those two areas, but they do have different uses, and this is going to be, if you're having a bigger meal, this is where you want to be. But I think you'll have a better balance of seating and sunbathing if you have got the sunbathing option. Now, you have got covers in these sections either side, a very Marex touch, whisper it, but that means that you can fully enclose this area in seconds, then it all tucks away into these sections on either side. And nice that you've got skylights overhead too, so there's some natural light and some ventilation coming down here, and they've got blinds as well. And like out there, storage is really good. There's storage underneath this section, and it's the same sort of thing. You can just use one hand to lift these up, all nicely lined out, and make it very easy to get to. And the quality, the touch points, things like the table, the stainless steel, these sections feel really, really nice. And it's opposite your wet bar galley, which is pretty well kitted out. You've got twin sink on this side, diesel hob. There's a bit of ventilation. You've got the hatches overhead. There's a window here too. I know a lot of people think your cooking inside isn't going to be really smoky, but of course you have got an open back and ventilation overhead, so I don't think it'll be too bad. Cutlery storage here. This could really do with something to hold it up, because that's just going to be very annoying that it keeps trying to slam down. And then we've got an array of storage and drawers underneath this section, but nice to see these handrails as you walk through the boat, so you've always got something to grab onto as you're moving through this area. Cooling space, reasonable sized fridge underneath the counter, and that's supplemented by an optional drawer fridge that's down here. It's not huge, but every little helps on a boat like this. These hatches underneath my feet, there's two. One is a quick access hatch for the engine room. I'll explain that when we talk about the engine room later. And then this is quite nice to have. Another really easily accessed storage space. You can see it's a technical area well, but look how clean it is. There's a ladder down into it. So if you want to store bigger kit like folding bikes, luggage, that can all be swallowed down there, and it's easy to get to. And in a pretty useful central place on the boat as well. There's more clever thinking moving forward. As I said, you have got so much seating on this main deck. It's impressive, and this is relatively flexible really, because here you've got these sort of opposing benches. This will be a nice place for people to sit when the boat's moving along. Of course, you've got one navigator seat, but 1-2 people can also sit facing forward when the boat's going along. You can put your feet up and relax, or if you really want to relax, you can slide that out and you have a full chaise longue. Nice that you've got somewhere to put a phone and some cup holders, and it's really good. You don't have to remove this completely. You have to find somewhere to put it. You just slide it underneath the side deck. I like that. And I've noticed a hatch I hadn't seen earlier. What's under here? Oh, a very, very deep locker that I suspect is for an optional television. Otherwise, it's just a nice deep storage space. Onto the helm. Now I remember from testing the 300 HT, we've got a sea trial on the channel, so I'll put a link to that in the description below, that the driving position on that boat was really, really good. And it feels the same here. Hard to tell inside a shed, but immediately the position feels really good. I'm nicely supported by these seats, and the key controls are literally underneath my hands. I don't feel like I have to move to reach those major controls at all. That's really nice. There are 3 engine options: inboard Mercury with 270 horsepower, what this boat has got, Volvo Penta D4-320s, and these are on stern drives with the optional joystick, or you can have outboards. Performance with this one, about 37 knots, and I reckon with those twin 350 outboards, you could be cracking 40 knots with this thing, which is pretty impressive. But it's a really nice dual-range dash arrangement. It's clean, it's simple, a lot of it is digital, as you'd expect these days, but you've got switches as well for your main controls. However, it is a bit annoying that there aren't just some buttons to turn on the lights in this wheelhouse. All of this, the lighting in here, is done through the screen, which gives you lots of adjustment, but I just want a button that I can hit to turn the lights on when I arrive on the boat, so that's a bit of an oversight. Everything else though, pretty good. I like this space, and lots of ventilation options. Windows on both sides, electric hatches, which are standard, over my head, and actually, if I flip up this bolster, I can stand and just about peek over the top, which is a nice option to have. If you're coming into an unfamiliar harbour, you can look around and stand pretty comfortably with the sunroof open. But a lot of the time, yeah, you're going to sit or you're going to bolster. There are some options. You can make yourself nice and comfortable at this helm. Right, before we look at where you sleep, let's go up front. They've pulled a similar trick to the 300 here. It's got a low profile, this boat, but actually quite a lot of freeboard. So it is quite a steep staircase up onto this side deck, and then when you're up, these do feel a bit low. However, you've got something to grab all the way along. These nice railings on top of the roof here means you can steady yourself pretty easy, but yeah, these are quite narrow. It's very much one foot in front of the other. However, there are tow rails, so it's not too bad. And once you get forward, you obviously lose this to hold on to, but the railing runs all the way up, and then you've got railings down here either side of the sun pads. You know, this is not a huge area on a boat like this, but again, they've made it relatively practical. You can flatten all of this off just to make totally flat sunbathing space if you want, but the pop-up backrests are a nice addition, so you can sit a bit more comfortably if the boat's stationary or moving along slowly. And again, the fact they've put in the cup holders and these slots here to stop valuables sliding around, and a nice big hatch for the cabin below, bringing in natural light as we see when we go downstairs. No bow anchor on this particular boat, but as I said back there, you can have that as an option if you want. Right, let's head inside. It's all about sleeping accommodation here on the lower deck. Living space up there, sleeping space down here, and they've got 3 cabins on board. Let's start amidship, shall we, with a pair of private doubles. So the beds are set quite low, you sort of fall into them. However, once you're in, not too bad in terms of width. Headroom not great over here, but yeah, plenty of space for a couple to lie side by side. You've got this little bench as well, so you can perch here. There's no hanging storage in here. There are a couple of hooks so you can hang your coats up, and there are some drawers behind this panel here. And it's much the same over on this side. Almost identical really, maybe slightly less intrusion overhead, but yeah, you know, you can stand here in the lobby, not massive space to get changed, but just about. You are lacking some hang storage again. But yeah, the beds themselves aren't too bad. What I will say, in this light oak finish, it just feels a little bit austere. I think a darker wood will make it feel a bit warmer and more homely, and obviously once you've tarted it up with some cushions and some personal effects, I think it would look a bit more homely down here. But this is a decent sized berth. This is your main double. Privacy is via a curtain, but again, it's a reasonable size sleeping space. And out here is where you find quite a bit more storage. Underneath, again, that's nice and easy to access, all lined out. That's bathhouse to access down there, but again, space for some more bags down there, and a little bit of hang storage inside here. Obviously drawers on this side, and then you can hang some clothes up there. Nice, it lights up as well when you open the door. But considering you can sleep 6 people on board, there could be a bit of a queue for the bathroom in the morning, just a single bathroom. However, it is a good size, large enough in fact to have a proper separate shower cubicle and not just a curtain. Not too bad. Right, let's head back and have a look at those engines. Right, as I said, there's a manual hatch once this electric hatch is up. I'll just crawl out here so I've got a bit more room. And look, it's a 40-footer. You don't expect massive engine room space. You have got a separate access hatch forward, a quick access one in the cockpit. But even the fact that you've got a bit more space to climb into if you need. If you do major work, it's got ventilation, a bit more natural light in the day. It does make it easier to have a look at things and also service things when it comes to more major engineering work. Obviously with the twin inboards, there's a reasonable amount of space either side of them to work on them and get to the aft end of the engines. Of course, if you go for the outboards, well, you've just got another enormous storage space down there. There you go then, that is the biggest boat that Aquador has ever built. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. I think in terms of deck space, it's pretty remarkable really for a 40-footer. Quite ambitious having 6 people sleeping downstairs. It might feel a little cramped down there, but they're gonna have plenty of space to lounge around up here. And I'd be interested to know, if you were gonna spec this boat, would you have this, or would you have the sunpad and the tender garage? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks very much for watching that tour and review. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give us a like. We'd really appreciate it. And if you want to watch our sea trial of this boat's little sister, the 300 HT, I'll put that up there. Thanks again for watching. I'm Jack Haynes. This is YachtBuyer.